And then we're going to share a little bit about, school in a pandemic, because there are a lot of things that we've learned, a lot of things that we've done well, a lot of things that we haven't done well that we've learned from, and we wanted to share those things with you. One thing I want to say before we dive in is I'm certain that in your coursework, equity has come up. The word equity, defining what equity is, defining what equity means. And I'm confident that Virginia State has also pumped in the curriculum, not just to define equity, but actually how to provide access, how to remove barriers, how to remove obstacles, and put supports in place to level the playing field for all of our students. And the one thing that I want to say before we move on at all is equity is not just another thing. Equity is the thing. So one thing hopefully that will come out in our conversation today is how we've intentionally messed around with equity. So if you are on a computer and you want to use your phone, you can scan this QR code, or you can just utilize the slides that we shared in the chat. What it will take you to is this is our shared vision launchpad, and everything that you see on this launchpad is interactive. So if you come over here and you're looking at, okay, what do they mean by future ready graduates? Well, what we mean is we want to create future ready graduates that have the necessary knowledge, skills, and dispositions to be prepared no matter what path they choose for college, career, or contribution. So if you go over here and you click on knowledge, you will see our instructional program and the courses that students can select, grades 9 through 12, as well as our career pathways that are aligned to the 17 career clusters. If you click on this skills, you'll see how we define our 6 C's. You know that Virginia has 5 C's. Well, Chesterfield County, we've got to one-up that, and we've created a 6th C. So you can see how we define those 6 skills. And there's also a full-blown rubric that's linked into that. And then our dispositions. So for us, we want our students to go beyond the content. The typical diploma really is a stamp that the child has navigated the K-12 curriculum. Well, we want this set of workplace readiness skills. And then for us, we've got 9 dispositions. And that document, if you click on dispositions, will show you what those 9 are and how we define them. They're things like grit, resilience, adaptability, risk-taking, compassion, humility, service, gratitude, and empathy. Those things that we think are important to be a good human being internally, and also how students show up in the space. We do that through life-ready experiences. And on here, if you click this, you'll see the opportunities that we provide our kids for them to find I'm not just going to click on it to show you, to find their identity, find their purpose, and to develop a deep-seated belief that anything is possible. So we have very intentional moves, and hopefully some of that is what you'll see, because we think it's important for kids to unearth their genius and find their identity and really start walking in their purpose before they graduate, before it's kind of too late, while the stakes are a little bit lower and while things are free. The last thing that we want for any of our kids is they wake up the next morning after graduation and the first thing that they say to themselves, or the first question they ask is, well, what do I do now? So obviously we want them to have that figured out. And we want a little bit more for our students when it comes to identity and purpose. The core of what you're looking at here, our shared vision is every night, every day. And yes, it's a clever play on words, but it's also a deeper meaning. And the idea that equity is the thing shows up in this. So every night, every day, what our shared vision is we take every student for who they are. Their strengths, their weaknesses, their likes, their dislikes, their cultural norms, their social construct, their dreams, their goals, their genius, and we design the high school experience around them, as opposed to the other way around. I mean, for many of you, I'm guessing, because it was for me, and I'm not that old, I'm old, but the high school experience is, here's the box, you got to fit in it. And for so many of our students in 2021, that box just isn't working. So we designed the box around who they are, and that's what every night, every day is. And we have committed to 5 levers, and we've said as a school that if we do these 5 things well, then we will not only be a great school, but we will be able to deliver on the promise of every night, every day. And that is a positive, healthy, and joyful school culture, collaborative processes for school improvement, high quality instruction, student voice and student leadership, and family and community engagement. If we nail those 5 things, we will be able to deliver on that promise. So what we're going to unpack a little bit today is our focus on equity. And before I turn it over to Jeff to talk about the work that we're engaged in now, I want to just tell a brief set of story in terms of, this is my third year here at Thomasdale. And one thing that I wanted to focus on was trust, communication, and relationships. And we know that trust, communication, and relationships are the foundation for everything. The foundation for leadership, the foundation for school, for organizations, for moving things forward. And in a focus on trust, communication, and relationships in my first year here, there were some things that started showing themselves. Some implicit and sometimes explicit biases that were showing up and impacting how adults were interacting with kids. And it didn't sit well with me. So I knew that we had to act. So the first thing that we started talking about was bias-based beliefs, things like color blindness, things like deficit thinking, and poverty disciplining. We defined those things and gave examples of how they show up. And then we dug deeper into our own implicit bias. We talked about our experiences and how our experiences shape the lens through which we view the world. And we had our entire faculty take the Harvard Implicit Association test. And that was a cataclysmic event, but it was a key event in our transition into making equity a thing and for leveling the playing field. And as spring last year, as the movement for social change and racial justice became deafening, probably the loudest I know of my lifetime that I've ever heard it. We knew that we needed to up our game and put a deeper emphasis on cultural competence. And so this is the time that I'm going to turn it over to Jeff for him to talk about our story and our journey and the work that we're doing around cultural competence.
So one of the things before I even get started, I like to say, when you see every night, every day, I always like to say about our students, when they leave Thomasdale, we want them to leave with a diploma in one hand and an opportunity in the next. So that's what we're really, really working for, as we create that experience for them. So when we talk about Cultural Competency Committee, in the springtime, we all knew what took place. We were living through multiple pandemics at once. We knew we had to dig a little bit deeper. Right around in the early part of last year, we were doing a lot of work dealing with bias and implicit and explicit bias. So we want to get a little bit deeper and talk about some conversations with race. You talk about Thomasdale, we are very diverse. So we really wanted to kind of go a little bit deeper and have some dialogues about that. So our school started in July having monthly conversations about race. We knew that this is something, we're not here to say you're right or wrong. We're here to get it right. And we know that everything that we do, the work that we're doing, is for our students and just to make us better and prepare our students, because we want to send out the best product once they leave out of Thomasdale High School. So having these conversations has been an eye-opening opportunity for everyone. We've had opportunities to stay engaged. We've had guest speakers to come in. We've had our students to come in and dialogue and talk about what they're seeing around campus. And they're saying, one of the things they're talking about is representation. They felt like representation is important, not just for Black History Month. They want to have representation in the curriculum. We're working in the curriculum. We're working with some of our curriculum specialists to make those changes so our students can see themselves within the curriculum throughout time in various subjects, in all of our subjects that's being taught on Thomasdale. In addition to, we said, we need to see ourselves when we get off the bus or come through, the door and we get out of our car. We want to see more than just the janitor. We want to see more individuals that look like us. So when you talk about the whole recruitment and retainment, we know that's important. We know that's important. When you got 30% African-American, 19% Hispanic, over 3% Asian, we know that's important. Those kids to see themselves when they walk through there, because the data will show and tell you that when they see individuals like them, it helps out that data. It shows that it helps out discipline. It helps out building mentors. It helps out instructionally, just all over, just the full capacity of that. So that's one of the things that we've been talking about within our cultural competency team. We also bringing in VCU to start having even more deeper dialogues with our team to unfold some different things. Next year, we've already, as a leadership team, The Culture of Responsive Teaching and the Brain by Zaretta Hammond. So we're gonna dive deeper as an entire team to have a book study with that. So we definitely, you know, when I say all those things, we put it all together. That's what our team has been working on since July, having those conversations. When you talk about the student voice and the student choice, again, listening to the kids, listening to what our kids are saying. After the incident at Capitol, our kids came in. We had an open forum, and kids could come in between their class. You know, was a little distraught. Some of the teachers brought their entire class in, and we sat down as a team and listened to our kids, and they were very distraught about what transpired. They saw it real time, so you can't hide anything like you might have hid it, like you could have hid it in the 80s or in the early 90s or even in 2000. Kids are seeing it real time. So we have to have these dialogues, and our staff, and they understand and they know. And when we're talking about recruitment, we know it's important to, when you recruit these male teachers or these African-American teachers or just different teachers of color, we know we have to put supports in place, and we're working to put and continue to put those supports in place to keep those individuals here, to make them feel comfortable. And that's very important, because once you walk through a door, you want to make yourself feel like it's home. And once you feel like it's home, you're going to give 110%. And we know that, you know, once you feel comfortable, you're giving that 110%, we're going to stay here for a while. We want you here for a while. And that's our goal. So definitely recruitment and retainment is definitely one of our high on our list.
So another way in which we focus on equity is through our instructional program. I think there's a lot that can be learned about how a school approaches their instructional program when it comes to equity, when it comes to access, when it comes to removing barriers and providing those opportunities. So we got a couple of cool things. Our 2-for-1 innovation is us being able to offer classes where students get 2 credits while they're sitting in one class. So some of that is combining content like VA US history with the film class. That's a 2-for-1 class that we offer. So instead of taking standard multiple choice tests, the students are actually making documentaries. I'll come back to detracking because that is the most equitable thing that we do. One of the things that I noticed when I got here was that in the course selection process, when a student, like during this season right now, would be selecting their classes for next year, there was a teacher recommendation process that served as a gatekeeping practice that kept our students who have been historically marginalized from getting into the honors and the AP and the dual enrollment and the IB type classes. So we eliminated those gatekeeping practices so that students would have unadulterated access if they knew that they were ready. We haven't given up on coaching and advising. The conversation has shifted in that, you know, a student, you can do this, and I know you're capable of doing it. You and I both know that your work and study habits are not going to serve you well in that class. So that'll be something that you need to think about when you move into that class next year. That's a very different discussion than, well, you can't do that. You're not ready for that. You haven't performed for me. What makes you think that you're going to perform in an AP class? We've eliminated those gatekeeping practices, and we've aligned the bulk of our curriculum to the 17 career clusters that VDOE has put forth. We take our CTE and our elective classes, and we give the students a progression years 1 through 4, and the 4th year is when we typically allow them to take a capstone or an internship experience for credit, not just extra, but it is the thing that they do. And we've started very slowly. This is the thing that's going to take the most time, is infusing universal phenomenon, infusing career cluster things, the context that's outside in the world into the curriculum that has historically been devoid of any context, like math for the sake of math, the bell rings, I walk down the hallway. I do some biology for the sake of biology, the bell rings, I walk down the hallway. I do English for the sake of English. No, starting to bring the context in is what we're trying to do. The concept of detracking is exactly what it sounds like. All of us on this call know or have a pretty good intuition that tracking happens right around 3rd grade. Right around 3rd grade is when educators start to put kids in a track based on reading level or math acumen or work habits or unfortunately behaviors. And once we start tracking kids, it gets more and more difficult to pull them out of that track. So one thing that we are really leaning into is the concept of detracking, meaning that no matter what class you're in, you will always have access to the honors coursework. You will always have the ability to complete honors level work and have access to the rigorous curriculum that we promise all of our kids, not just some of our kids. So for an example, all the kids are in earth science class who take earth science. There is no C-level earth science. There is no honors earth science. It is earth science. And the class is structured in a must do, should do, and aspire to format. What that is every single kid has to do the must do work and assignments. Kids who are struggling need to dig into the should do assignments, and kids who are ready for honors or want to complete honors or want to try honors, they work on the aspire to assignments. So intentionally detracking what has historically been a tracked curriculum, we are doing that slowly but surely at Thomasdale with our focus on equity. So I'm gonna turn it over to Jeff to talk real quickly about the things that we've learned and the intentional moves that we've had, that we've done, I guess is the word I'm looking for here, since almost a year. I mean, we're about 345 days in. Am I right? Like, we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the shutdown. It's crazy. So go ahead, Jeff, speak to him.
So when we talk about communication and you talk about the pandemic, we as a team huddled, and I mean, we huddled virtually. We would do calls just to kind of connect. You know, what are we going to do? What is our plan? What's our vision as we even went to the pandemic? I mean, Dr. Jones has done a fabulous job since he came in 2 years ago, utilizing social media. He does Instagram lives in the morning, Instagram lives and Facebook lives in the afternoon as well, just to kind of tell our parents what's going on and to connect with our parents. So with communication, we as a team and deliver to all our team, everybody we supervise, that we wanted to start making those phone calls, connecting with our families and with our community. That opened up a whole nother floodgate for our families, because I personally made calls to some kids that I've never seen or touched it anyway. Just they were in my alpha. I started going down my entire list, making phone calls, and I talked to more parents, and they were just like, "I'm glad you called." And we just had genuine conversation. They were like, you know, we've been in this house for so long, and that's really what we're trying to open. Our families and our kids understand, and our teachers understand. The more that you call, the more that you contact, the more that you're transparent about what's going on, because it opened up a whole new environment for everyone. We had to be very agile, because the word pivot was the key word that we learned in August. If you never heard it, Chesterfield said, "This is it. You got to learn how to pivot." So we started planning in July what school was going to look like. We had to make some adjustments. You know, even to our instruction, we started utilizing Canvas. All of our staff came in, and well, not came in, our staff had PD over the summer. They utilized Canvas page, and they have getting each day they've gotten better at utilizing that, and it would kids understand that. And then we knew eventually our kids were going to come back in the building, and they did. And we were ready and prepared for when they came back in the building. We knew that. And we knew, like, after we went back going to a hybrid virtual setting, we knew they would eventually come back, in which they are again March the 9th. So we're ready for those kids to come back in. We made some adjustments there. You know, at Thomasdale with 2,400 kids, you would have kids eating in the commons or the cafeteria. Our kids understood once they got off the bus, it was going straight to their classroom. So we had our cafeteria worked really well with us, and they had kiosks. So we set up 2 kiosks so kids could come to various points, and they were having their breakfast when they got off the bus or got out of their car. And then we talked about the grace to understand the flexibility. That's one thing our teachers, when they talk about listening to the kids, we said, you know, our kids are being swamped. They were sending Dr. Jones emails. They were sending us emails through Canvas. You know, it's any way they could get in contact with them. Because again, when I'm gonna go back to transparency, Dr. Jones is, you know, he has his cell phone number out there, and we're not talking about the work phone. We're talking about his personal cell phone number. All of Route 10, probably all of everybody knows it because it's out there now. But he'll tell them, call me, text me, email me, DM me, anything to let me know what's going on. And we had told them that the kids were saying this. And then the teachers dug in a little bit deeper. They dug their heels a little bit deeper and started to ask their kids, you know, let's talk about this and let's talk about that. And that's when our teachers found out that our kids are being swamped. they are learning something that some of you all on this call learned your junior year of college. They had to learn at the age of 14, 15, 16, 17, and they were, we gave them as much as we could to prepare them, as well as our teachers were learning something new as well. Because none of us went to school this way. So we all had to kind of learn on the fly. We all had to be flexible. We all had to be agile. So our teachers were saying, we're going to give you some grace. After consulting with us and we talked about it, like we're limiting and marking down some of our assignments. Like we're not trying to give 20 assignments in a 9 weeks. Let's see if we can give one good assignment and start working with those students. And our teachers are when I talk about the grace, they work with our kids so much. They're making the phone calls. They're sending the remind messages, and just working together as a team, as a PLCs has been more important than ever, because that way they're planning together, they're working together, and they're bringing their strengths to the table. So when they're in an area or different strand, they can all pull for one another. And it's lightened the load in so many capacities. So, definitely that's been important. And we told them in the beginning, and I took over the math team this year. So after the AP she transitioned, and her and I said that we collaborated, and we asked questions to the teams, like, what would you like to cut out? What would you like to cut back? What would you like to consolidate? What do you want to create? This is the time more than ever. Let's be creative. Even if we're giving assessments, how can you be creative in giving your assessments? This is the opportunity. We always give you that autonomy, but now we're letting it go. Like, let's go. And we talked about cutting back and cutting out. I always tell our teachers, your curriculum was not written to be in a virtual setting. And they said, yes, I understand, I know. And they were like, well, we can cut some of these things out to get more of the meat and potatoes. We don't want to deliver a lot of that fat. We want to get to that meat and potatoes and those vegetables for those students. And it's helped out our students. I mean, it's helped out our staff. It's helped out them just planning back. And so, giving that autonomy to our teachers to go forward. We want them to be innovative. We really are pushing that innovative piece. When you talk about that 2-for-1, that's all that innovation we're talking about here on Route 10.
You got me fired up, cracking jokes in the chat, Jeff. I love it. So at this time, we're going to stop talking and turn some questions over to you. I didn't see any questions dropping in the chat. So if you want to unmute, ask your questions, drop your question in the chat. Let's learn from each other.
I have a question. How would you rate your support from your school district in the time of transition into online virtual learning?
Woo! Hey, did you just come up with that question, or did you think about it beforehand?
I came up with that question. I also use that question in interviews, so that's
yes.
It's off the dome.
Carrington, is that you go by Carrington? Yeah. All right. Awesome. That question is amazing. So I'm trying to think back to like 10 years ago, because COVID has felt like a 10-year journey. I think as we were trying to figure things out, our district was very transparent, which is important. We were well positioned because we were a one-to-one school. So getting those resources in the hands of our kids, because it became very apparent early where the gaps were. So getting Wi-Fi access, getting hotspots, getting Chromebooks in the hands of the kids, getting food drops set up, getting food pickups set up. So to help our families, navigate the crisis, I'd say B+. In terms of supporting us, it wasn't easy for anyone. I never felt like we didn't have the resources we needed to pivot, to become agile. I'd say B-. only because there were a lot of things that we were having to figure out on our own. Luckily for me, of course, I get to be the face of it, but it's the team who does all the work. We've got an amazing team we've assembled over here at Thomasdale. Our faculty, our staff, and our leadership team, A-. And that's because I tell them nobody's perfect. There's always room for improvement. So when it comes to supporting our students, I'd say our division was a B+. For supporting staff and students, it was a B- only because it was difficult and tricky. Yeah, Jeff, would you add anything to that? Carrington, that's a great question.
It is. I think more or less we'll talk about the support. They gave us the support, but however, I feel like, to be honest, and it's going to be kind of bragging, I feel like Dale took a lead, and we were already ahead and doing what we needed to do to support our family, because we really thought about our family, our community. Even when there was a storm, I don't remember when it was a storm in the heat of the pandemic, we started to call teachers. We started to check, Dr. Jones sent out a message to all of the families on Instagram and Facebook. We called our teachers to start wrapping our arms around them. So we had really just like, okay, the instruction piece, we're gonna kind of let it down already in March, and from March to June, we were like, let's just wrap our hands around these kids. Let's wrap our hands around our families. Let's keep them first, and then everything else, we'll work through that. We'll work through that. Let's keep the main thing, and we did that. And then then when you talk about us as an admin team, we then supported as much as we could our staff, our team. And Dr. Jones continued to huddle us, and we would have conversations to kind of make sure that we were all good, checking in on each other. So as he's talking about the B, I just think like this, and if you know or touch base with anybody that talks about, works at Thomasdale, they'll say, we kind of lead and the rest come behind us. And I mean, that's kind of, we just really, and that's how we really stuck it out through the whole pandemic. And that's how we made it through this pandemic. Just keeping our kids, our families first. And then we roll as a team and try to, connect with each other to make sure we're on one accord, and we're checking in each day really good. Great question.
May I ask a question?
Yes. Hey, just so y'all know, Sierra already sent me a text.
I sure did.
You're already behind.
So my question, you said that you had them take the Harvard implicit bias test. I just wanted to know, like, what was like the reaction from your team in response to that test, and like how did that really go over? Because you said it was I can't remember the word you used, but it was a big thing. So I just wanted to know a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, I don't remember what word I used either. So I asked them to take 3. If you've taken it, you know that there's like 8 or 9 different ones. I asked them to take the one on race, the one on gender, and then a choice. And so, I think it wasn't easy for me to say, all right, full faculty. I mean, faculty, we've got 172 teachers, 223 total staff here at Thomasdale. It wasn't easy for me to say, I want everyone to take this, because as an organization, I felt that it was very needed, and we were ready to take the next step to the conversation about race, to take the next step in the conversation about equity, and the next step in uncovering our biases, so we could see how we kind of get in the way of our kids, and sometimes to their detriment. So for our folks who were ready, it was a great experience for them. Gave them great feedback to help them better understand. And we paired the test with small group discussions around our experiences. So what is it about my life's experiences that shape my bias? The first thing that we had to do, let me back up a little bit, Sierra, because now you got me on fire. The first thing that we had to do was to address the misconception that bias was a bad thing. Like, not knowing that everyone has a bias. No matter what, you have a bias. That is literally the lens through which you observe the world. It doesn't mean you're racist. It doesn't mean you're prejudiced. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means you are showing up in this space with some experiences that might be blocking you. And if you don't recognize what those biases are, then you won't be able to shift that, move it out the way, and then to be able to interact human being to human being, and then be willing to listen to the other person to learn their experiences and learn their perspective. So for the folks who were ready, great experience, moved a lot of things forward. And believe you me, we had teachers in them small groups like this. Lean back, arms folded. Man, this testing, questioning the validity of the test. I don't believe any of this. This test is biased. We had those teachers, absolutely. But what helped them was, even in their posted up stance like this, they were there and they were listening to see and hear their colleagues who they trusted and respected be vulnerable in that moment, and be transparent in that moment, and say, you know what, when I pair this idea of these bias-based beliefs, like, I am a teacher who has said to my kids, I don't even see color, I'm colorblind. And then to come around to the outside and say, okay, through our dialogue, I realize now that my intentions were to express that I'm not racist, but this is what I was actually doing. And so for us to be able to have those dialogues for the folks who were ready and the folks who weren't, to be able to at least witness, helped move them a little bit forward so that eventually they could lean forward. Now, are we 100% of our adults in a space where we talk about anti-racism, where we talk about white privilege and white fragility, where we talk about white supremacy, where we talk? No, not everyone's there. And it's going to take us some time. So trust me when I say, we've been in this work for, I don't know, maybe 14, 15, maybe 16, 17 months. And we're just going to continue moving forward. And we hire for the vision. Did I answer your question, Sierra? Okay.
Yes, you did. Thank you so much.
You got to be careful about asking a question that'll set me on fire, because I'll talk for days. All right, Alexis, how do we get teachers to extend graciousness and not be gatekeepers? Ooh, that's it. Hey, Jeff, you want to answer? I've been talking a lot, man.
Well, I think, you kind of, unleash that passion to those teachers, and you kind of tell them, we got to look at our kids at what they are and who they are, and what's going on in their lives. And so we talk about that whole piece of empathy, things that you think of. When the pandemic hit, you got to think Chesterfield was mandated to do cameras on. Our teachers even looked at it and said, hey, being the gracious piece, they said, we know what our kids are going through. We know that some of them got 2 and 3 siblings. We know that when I have a class, they might be cooking lunch or whatever. I gotta take them from where they are. If they're showing up, that means they're willing and ready to learn. So they are being that flexible. They're being gracious and not just being gatekeepers. And they know if they build relationships, because if you build a relationship, the rest will come. And they understand that. And that has taken time. I know that I've only been here 2 years and Jones has been here 3, but I understand and know that he's been talking about relationships when he first walked through the door. And that's been the cornerstone of what he's been discussing with our staff. And we continue to reiterate as an entire team. So it's driven into them. So when we talk about being gracious, that's how we get them there. It's how we move them there. We get them to that point of, you got to think about the kid first. Extract what you're thinking and think about the kid first. And again, it goes back to talk to your kids and build those relationships with those kids. And it goes on. And like, we're doing a seminar, and seminar is an opportunity when they have kids like Dr. Jones put it together, like morning meeting, and that opportunity to have this discussion with their kids. They're calling those students that they have, I think it's like 15 to 18 kids each of our teachers have. They're calling those kids, they're talking to those kids. They're asking them, how are they doing? Do you need some assistance organizing? Do you need some assistance getting with your homework? And that's building that relationship. So as they build relationships with those kids that are in their seminar class, it spills over to kids within their classroom. So again, it's like we're getting free PD. And it's about that building that relationship. That's really how we got them to that point. And we continue to move it, and we continue to say it. And we all, as a leadership, say the same thing. And as long as we're saying the same thing, that boat will continue to move forward, and we're rowing it in the right direction.
Yeah, and I'll say this, nothing teaches somebody how to extend grace more than when grace is extended unto you. So believe you me, the adults in our school, every single one of them, me included, have needed moments of grace. And as soon as somebody extends you grace, it makes it a whole lot easier to understand why you need to extend grace as well. And Jeff touched on just briefly on seminar. So I dropped a quick document in there for you to check out, because we didn't even talk about seminar. And seminar is the most important thing that we do at Thomasdale. We didn't even talk about that. You're welcome, Alexis. That was an awesome question.
Hi, Dr. Jones. I have a, well, not necessarily a question, but my name is Melissa White. I'm the Dean of Students at Carver Middle School. And so you'll be getting, I'm also the 8th grade administrator, so you'll be getting some more of my students next year, and they're excited to Thomasdale. And I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed hearing you speak. And one of the things that I can tell that you are really, passionate about what you do. You are had a Black Lives Matter march. And so the administration at Carver Middle School, we came over and we marched with the students, with your students, and then students in the community. But I just wanted to say that it was very, very touching. And I just want to say thank you. And our students are already excited to go to Thomasdale because you bring so much energy. And so I just want to say thank you. I'm going to miss them next year, but I know they're in good hands. So I just wanted to tell you that.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. And yeah, obviously, thanks for the shout out, and thanks for developing the kids who will come to us. So yeah, absolutely. And then also, I mean, thank you for being a part of what we try to put together for our kids. They wanted to be a part of the movement, but in a way that was safe. Like, they didn't want to be about that Richmond life. The demonstrations that were going on in Richmond, the violence, the destruction, that was no place for a teenager, and they recognized that. So when they reached out to us, we did it right. I mean, we got permission from the county, we got permission and organized with the police department. I mean, you remember we had a police escort, and to be able to witness our kids amplify their voices, and to not just witness the movement, but to be the movement. It's like, I've got goosebumps that, like, right now, thinking about that week in preparation for that day, and the way that our kids mobilized in like less than 24 hours. From the time that we announced that it was happening until the time it happened, I mean, I don't even know how many people showed up, but it was a lot. And they mobilized quickly, because it's just evidence that the kids, they want to be heard. And when you value what they have to say, and this is for all of you, when you value what kids have to say, that's the game changer.
And I think, and I'll add on a little bit to what he said, Dr. Jones said, our kids feel comfortable, and we try to work for each kid to have someone they can touch base with at Thomasdale. When that kid kind of, organized this, he interviewed Dr. Jones. I learned so much from his interview, his podcast from Dr. Jones, that I probably should have known, but he brought out even more that I didn't know. And I was like, okay, go, let's go. And that's the kind of kids that, we trying to work for, because again, they're going to go out into the real world and do things. So when they organized it, and, I remember being at graduation, that young man came to me and said, hey, are you coming? I said, I got it. It's on my calendar. I'm ready to roll. So, I mean, that's the type of things that we're really trying to bring. And we want, our people to understand at Thomasdale is, we want to have open arms. We want you to come in, and we want kids to be able to talk to you and let them be themselves, and let us navigate in a proper way through certain things and through life. Because we all have all the correct answers, but we'll work with you to get it right.
Hey, Alexis, bring it on. Emmett Ridley, bring it on. I'd love to have your kids at Dale. I want them all.
Well, I am I'm far past the age of having high school children, but I'm sitting here very somewhat, I should say, not very, but somewhat emotional. And I won't go into a lot of details, but I worked for the Virginia Department of Education many years ago in the late 80s, early 90s. And a group of us conducted a study on tracking and ability grouping in the Commonwealth of Virginia in math and science. I'm glad to hear at least that you've observed that tracking starts at the 3rd grade, because we found it starts at kindergarten and the 1st grade. I've sent that message to encourage you to document what you're doing, because there's a considerable amount of professional development. You said you're doing some professional development now, but there's a considerable amount of professional development that can be conducted in Chesterfield County schools in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And I won't belabor this, but one of the other reasons that I'm emotional is that I challenged tracking and ability grouping when my son was entered Midlothian High School after leaving private school. So I'll just leave it at that. And I'm trying to check my emotion, but this has been a very productive. What you're doing is extremely productive, and this is a very meaningful and necessary challenge to undertake. And I commend the leadership, the faculty, and the things that you're doing that are promoting change in this regard at Thomas Dell, and I hope it continues to spread.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Great point, Dr. Ridley. Chris and Jeff have been doing some fantastic work in the community, and especially in the Chesterfield County system. And it permeates the entire system, because their colleagues are having to step up their game to meet that intensity. And it shows. Now, I have a real quick question for Jeff and Chris, though. When we're going to finish our conversation about our academy for teacher preparation and getting some students in a pipeline so that they go straight from Dale to VSU back to Dale as a teacher?
We're ready. I'll answer. I see Dr. Jones is shaking his head. As he says, the bobblehead, yes. So I agree. We're ready. I mean, we're ready, and that's something we definitely need. We know that we need. We want to have. We want to start. When we're talking about recruiting, recruiting starts real early. It starts before getting those kids in. We want to do that. We want those kids to go down to VSU and come right back to Route 10 and come home and teach and coach and whatever it may do, and do whatever they want to do at Thomas Dale. We're ready right now. So anytime you guys got open time, we're ready to go.
And look, for the first time, we are opening up the Virginia's Teachers for Tomorrow program here without having to wait for them to go to Tech Center to do it. We've got high quality educators in-house who I want future educators to learn from. So if we create our own pipeline, we feed them to you, you feed them back to us. There's no better way than to grow our own. So we're working on our part. We're gonna need you to work on your part. But we're ready. We're ready.
I think Dr. Spencer is ready to meet that challenge. So we'll leave it at that.
More so than just cultivating the next generation of educators. I guess my question would be, what can we do to position Dr. Jones and Mr. Millner in a place where they can also encourage the next generation of ed leaders? Because I think this enthusiasm is so infectious. I'm a school principal right now, and you guys have lit me on fire this afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Halls. We appreciate that. We're just hungry, and we want what's best for our kids each and every day. And I know everybody says that. We definitely try to walk it and talk it every day for our students and our staff.
But Dana, I
Right.
think part of it is inviting you all, the educational leaders and educational justice advocates, to this kind of conversation, right in front of our students, our interns. Many of these individuals that are on this call are our future educators and hopefully future administrators, right? That many of those that have asked these questions of this group, we're expecting them to go out, intern this semester, or finish their internship this semester, and be a beacon of light for possible future educators in the very near future. And hopefully, they will be inspired by these gentlemen and yourselves to continue the journey, to be administrators, because we know that the classroom teaching is just one aspect of making sure that students see people of color in a positive light. That it takes them going on and being administrators and being in control of a school to make sure that some of those things that they want to happen and see happen in their classroom continues to happen for an entire school and or for a school division. And then one day when hopefully either you, Dana, or Chris, or even Jeff, or one of you all go on to be a superintendent, that you will remember this conversation, so that you reach back to some of these young people that are on this call and are watching you for the first time, to be inspired so that they can continue on their own journey.
Absolutely. For all the students who are on the call today, I've put all of my contact information in the chat box. Please make sure you write it down and hold on to it. It might not be today that you need to use it. It might not be tomorrow. It might not be until 3 years down the road when you say, hey, Jones, remember me? And I say, no. And you say, hey, look, man, VSU call we had one warm winter day after the back-to-back polar vortex. I remember a conversation we had, and then I'll remember it because I just said all of that. But make sure you reach out and we stay in contact.
So
Any other
definitely.
questions?
We got one more in the chat, Dr. Jones, and it's talking about what I mean is how, well, pretty much building bonds with our students emotionally and mentally. And Dr. Jones kind of talked about that a little bit through our seminar programs. Our teachers, we really try to work with our teachers to build those relationships with those kids, to have a safe place for those kids to have conversations, not just for seminar, but what they learn in seminar goes within their classroom. So when we're talking about having conversations with your students, again, when I said the free PD, that's that opportunity for those staff members to have that conversation. In addition to our counselors are contacting and meeting students on a regular, just trying to see who, what's going on. And it's great. I have 2 counselors that I work with. It's phenomenal when I can kind of lean on them and they can give me so much information about that kid. They know the kid probably better, way better than I do. And I'm like, okay, what about this kid? And we kind of work together and we put together a plan. So our teachers are really listening and talking to our students. And our counselors are not trying to sit at the desk. They're trying to get out and talk to people and talk to our kids. They have the Google Voice number. They have their office hours, and they're contacting their kids throughout the day, trying to build those relationships and continue building those relationships. We have 2 campuses. We didn't mention that we have 2 campuses. We have a main campus and a west campus. And we have a 9th grade campus that is our west campus. So when they come over to Maine, which is 10 through 12, a lot of our counselors say, I don't quite know that student right now. So let me learn a little bit more about them. And they try to dig their heels in and build that relationship with that kid. So that's one of the things that we really push and we really work out. I mean, I know, like you said, sometimes when I was in school, I didn't see my counselor, but when we had to register for classes, we do way more than that.
Are there any other questions? Well, we would like to thank Dr. Jones and Mr. Milner. I'm sorry?
I had a late question.
Okay.
I admire what you guys are doing greatly, and a lot of it is outside the box. And you've established yourself, which is great. But in the beginning, did you get a lot of pushback from administration up top? And how did you deal with that?
Oh, that's a tricky question. I think I think one of the things that's important is when the people speak, we have to listen. And our approach has been to create a shared vision through very intentional moves to get feedback and input from community, to get feedback and input from families, to get feedback and input from students, to get feedback and input from faculty and staff and the administrative team. And I think when a school community creates a shared vision, that is what that school community needs. Number one, by defining success and what a successful student looks like for Chester and for Thomas Dale. And then more importantly than defining what that success looks like is defining the workflow to make it happen. And that is a very intentional thing that goes by. One thing that I always say is there is no such thing as thinking outside the box, because the box is real. The box exists, you can't ignore it. What the creative leader does is explores every square inch of that box in such a way that the box begins to move and to take new shape. And that is, you know, for me, I do call myself, part of what I call myself is an innovative leader, is to work around the box and figure out what within the system can I do without having to ask for permission, and what within the system can I do that's going to ruffle a lot of feathers to give them a heads up. So I'm still a young leader. I'm only in my third year as a principal. I'm new to Chesterfield. I relocated to Chesterfield for this job. So there are a lot of political landmines that I'm learning how to navigate in my young career, and in a place that I won't say any more than that. So I won't say that I've navigated successfully, but I'm learning how to be it, given the constraints and maybe not the impetus for doing it and for change. I put on a political, two-billed duck there, talking out of both sides of my mouth, maybe intentionally. But your question is really, really a good one. I think people go when they're ready. I'll just say that. And sometimes they just need help being ready. I don't know, Jeff, what do you think?
I think first of all,
Hey, look. I don't want to say anything that will get me in trouble. I'll say it right there.
They know Chris Jones, and they know Chris Jones has 10,000 ideas that's coming out of Route 10. They already know that. So they just kind of battle down and ready. Okay, Chris, this is going to be a little crazy. This is going to be a little crazy. So they know that. And they've actually kind of said that, like, your ideas are crazy, but then I listen and I lock it in, and it's wonderful. Like, we brought in the upper level administration earlier this school year. We had them all in here. We went through campus pages. They went and popped in classes. We brought them all in this bill, and virtually, and they were like, wow, you guys got a lot going on. And then that's when I think also it kind of like hit them, like, okay, we might have to kind of like pull back a little bit and sit and say, okay, we see what you got going on. We might not understand it, but we're going to have to help, just continue to help us figure it out. And as you help us figure it out, we're going to give you as much support as we can within that, in the correct parameters. Because you're doing what's best for your kids. But I think it's been some growing pains, but and they understand what's going on and what we're doing.
If I might add, if you continue to involve parents and community people, they will carry water for you in what you're doing, because they see the merits and benefits of it, and in turn, They will be your advocates, and they will be, you don't have to, you're not talking about central administration in your discussion with them, but they see you demonstrating and benefit and producing results. They will become your advocates, and central administration must listen to them.
Thank you, sir.
Well, we appreciate both of your time so much today. Thank you so much for being a part of this discussion and for having such a frank conversation with all of us. It's like having a one-on-one conversation, and it's been very meaningful, and you can see in the chat how many people are saying thank you for your time today. So we'll gladly have you back again later, but in the meantime, y'all keep going forward with all the things that you're doing, and we really do appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Spencer, Dr. Walter, either of you want to say anything?
Oh, I would just say fantastic job. Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing of yourselves and being so forthright and transparent with your own schools and understanding of where you are in this cultural perspective. I think ethnicity and understanding how we work within and around the different ethnicities that come in our school place is very important. And I think it's a great conversation to have in front of these future educational justice advocates. And I also wanted to thank all the listeners, all the callers, and the questions that they posed as well. And we know that you've only been there a short amount of time in the scheme of things, and that there are some things that are changing and turning around as we speak. But I just wanted to thank you all for sharing of yourselves and sharing of your school. And for those that called in, thank you for listening and sharing of yourselves. And hopefully this allows the conversation to continue to go.
And I don't really have anything to say, but thank you, and thank you, a special thank you to everybody who logged in today to hear this rich and dynamic conversation.